Hello, welcome to the Healthy Alternatives podcast. I am Dr. Christine Sauer with DocChristine.com. Today's show is a recording of my radio show of the same name. Enjoy! Hi, it's Dr. Christine Sauer with Your Quality of Life Healthy Alternatives here on YouTube and on the podcast and on the radio. And I'm very excited to be today with Matt Zinman, the author of Z-isms. Wow, that's an interesting thing, and you're so much more than that, but this is your latest book, and it is a fascinating book. I read some of it, and I'm intrigued. I'll certainly read the rest. Matt, welcome to the show.
Thank you. It's good to be with you, Christine.
Yeah, so how about you introduce yourself a little bit?
Sure. Well, I am based in Philadelphia, and I am, my background is in marketing, and then I founded a nonprofit called the Internship Institute. So I've been very involved in education in that way and workforce development. And all that experience led me to a book that I wanted to write with Z-isms and insights to live by.
How did you get the title Z-isms?
So part of it is rooted in my last name. I do have a fixation with the letter Z. And part of the challenge is when we're talking internationally, it's Z.
Yes.
So I have to put the phonetic on the book so that people understand it's actually Z. And, a Z-ism, that's the first question I get. Well, what is a Z-ism? And some people, when they hear isms, they think that it's like a quip of some kind. But, there are those pearls of wisdom or original wit, but it's really more about based on experiences that really any of us have that we know can positively impact as many people as possible. And, that's what Insights to Live By are about. And that's my purpose.
And that's a wonderful purpose. And it's funny, we share a similar purpose, but very different way of achieving it. And that's great. And tell me a little bit about your upbringing and what you did up to the time that you wrote the book.
Well, how far back do you want to go?
You were born in.
Born in. So yes, in and around the Philadelphia area. I'm the youngest of four. And my parents actually are at this point, they're long gone, unfortunately, as is one of my brothers. I don't mean to, start on a sad note.
No,
but
that's where the dedication came from.
Sure. Yeah. And, exactly dedicated to them and honor my brother. And, those are very life affecting experiences that shape any of us, and certainly me. And, various other, disclosures that are throughout the book. And certainly we can talk about, in terms of and around health, that I, have contended with depression since my teens. And that also shapes how, my daily living and taking care of myself and whatnot. And you may have heard of Temple University in Philadelphia. And one of the things that have grounded me throughout my life is that I'm an ice hockey player. And I've played, since I was very young, since I was 7. So that would put me over 45 years now, if you want to do the math, that I've played hockey. And I was captain of Temple, and I was on Team USA in my mid-teens. That's as far as I got, as far as my professional career. But we were undefeated champions, and I had my glory days. And now I basically play beer league. That's what's left for me.
Well, that's fun.
Absolutely.
It gives you the exercise you need.
Keeps me young at heart.
You definitely look
young in
younger
body.
than your calculated age.
I try, just like all of us.
Oh yeah, I really believe that even if we age on the outside, the inside can stay young if we work at it.
Sure. Yeah.
Now tell me what happened. You went to the university, you studied. What did you do from then?
So I had a journalism degree, and there were different concentrations that you could do. The one I chose was public relations, and wanting to make an impact and studying just the art and science of communication management, and did that for 15 years. And life intertwines, right, with our
Yeah,
career and what
absolutely.
decisions
Absolutely.
we make. And in 2002, I had my son Jacob was 2, and I made the decision, as difficult as it was, to divorce
Yeah.
and raise Jake as a single dad for the better part of the next 13, 14 years till I met my current wife, and she has a daughter, Greta, who's 15. Jake's now 19.
Yeah.
But being a single
Yeah.
parent, and at that time in '02, I then started my own business so that I could have the flexibility to be at home and be with him the half time that he was with me. And after a few years, that led me through my experiences. I had 4 internships. I've at this point had managed and mentored over 300 interns. I currently have 4, and that passion and aligning with my experience and skill set at the time, and seeing the need in and around improving internships, apprenticeships, all one and the same in terms of work-based learning, to really hone my expertise in that and make a difference. And now that passion has led me to the book, and I've actually put the nonprofit on the side. I have like man brain, like I can only do one thing well at a time. I know this about myself.
And that's
So
okay.
yeah. So
Really,
it's like I can't split my
it's not
attention.
just man brain, but
Yeah.
it is human brain.
Right.
The
Well, I'll
brain
just be
is
gender
not
biased
fixed.
because I can in this particular case
Yeah.
for
I
myself.
can do several things at the same time, but it's not as good.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. I'm just hardwired. As soon as I take my eye off the ball, I didn't see it. You know what I mean? So,
I see. Yeah. Yeah.
but yeah, so I'm really excited about the book. It's been very rewarding. It's only out a few weeks now,
Yeah.
and the early reviews have been very, very gratifying, and it's nice to hear that you like the book.
Oh, yes, absolutely. And you know that one of my focuses is mental health and quality of life. And I think the topic of the book really, really focuses on exactly that. So I'm very happy to be able to help you show it to a wider audience and help more people by actually reading it and doing the work.
Right. That's my goal. And, when you're trying to author a book, and, all the things that you learn, and the statistics are quite daunting, in that really only, rather less than 1% of books ever sell more than 50,000 copies. And over 90% of books only sell a few hundred. Now, part of the reason is because people write books for, wanting to, boost their ego on one hand, or
Limit, and then they
visibility.
can put author on their LinkedIn.
Right. Put author. No, that was not the case for me. I wrote Z-isms out of my pocket, in my mission to positively impact as many people as possible. My goal is to get it in as many hands as possible. So having me on the show is that much more meaningful. I really appreciate it.
No, I'm really happy about that. And tell us a little bit about the chapters, because when you read through the chapters, you think, what? That's self-development? They are really funny.
Thank you. Well, it does cover a lot of ground. I try to put as much of myself and my experience and some influences into it. It's certainly about personal development, but also interpersonal skills and relationships. And of course, the chapters on health and well-being, being a life athlete, for example, is part of that. And then we start getting into things like managing energy, and some of the influences around the law of attraction and manifesting things. And then when you get to very big goals, your purpose, your why, and how do you achieve that? And then what was really important to me was to make it actionable.
Yeah.
So, the winning the battle within is part of that equation. And then it culminates with this this life enrichment action plan. And so the reader can really decide for themselves, through the experience of the book, which is really very much about a personal conversation, right, between
Yeah.
myself and the reader. And then we have some fun too, like what's with coincidences, 1111, people have, and that's just part of the whole, energy aspect. There's a cautionary chapter about be aware of spiders.
Yeah,
That's
I
a
like that.
relationship.
Explain that a
Yeah.
little bit. What are spiders for you? I like that.
I have to say it's very interesting, Christine. I almost didn't put that chapter in because I wanted it to be as positive and uplifting, and that's certainly what my energy is about. But this is a cautionary chapter, and it came about through some hard living. And what we're talking about with spiders are manipulators. And and just as a side note, I started mentioning the law of attraction. I want to give credit to Rhonda Byrne, of whom I'm a fan, and also Malcolm Gladwell. Has some things to do with my book, has been an influence on me. So if your listeners like a Gladwell or a Rhonda Byrne type book, I think you will love mine, and encourage you to decide that for yourself.
So would you say those spiders are something like energy vampires that you?
That's exactly right. I mean,
it sounds so much better, like if you would say setting your boundaries. It's the same thing, but beware of spiders sounds nice. I like the language you write.
Thank you. Well, we have so many moving parts for us, even just within ourselves and our character traits, and whether we're a worrier or we have regrets, or mood health. We struggle just enough to pinpoint ourselves, let alone other people. And that's what the spider chapter is about. And that's why it reminded me to bring up Malcolm Gladwell, because he talks about thin slicing in his book Blink. And what that's about is, if you could find a data point, something that really helps you understand this or that, it really stops all those moving parts so that you can make better decisions and in your encounters. So when we talk about spiders, that data point is whether somebody has the character trait of being a manipulator or not. Will you make a conscious effort to put energy into pulling some people's strings? And when people think of office politics, for example, as an expression, people who do that, they would be considered spiders. And it's not that that's something they'll do all the time. It's just they have the capacity in their character to do that. And so when people think about that, and they
from it, and it goes seamlessly in the energy preservation or energy management, as you call it.
That's exactly right. And we all have our encounters, and the difference here is that someone who is that way, they're making a conscious effort, whereas the rest of us are oblivious. We want to give people the benefit of the doubt and believe the good, and of course we do. And it doesn't make a spider a bad person per se. It's just that they have that character trait. So how do you avoid those webs? How do you not always be on guard, because who wants to live like that?
Right.
But also recognize that I do need to be somewhat cautious. And if I do encounter somebody who's manipulating, how do I say no? So, let's put it this way. If you have certain, if you're a listener right now and you're someone who says, I really need to say no more often, right? You're somebody who's more prone to be taken advantage of, someone who knows that they can, make your, pull your strings in that way, right?
Yeah.
And then you feel terrible, right? It's like, oh, I should have said no. And, part of it's rooted in self-esteem and things. But if you're one of those individuals who, says that to yourself, I really should say no, you feel bad about yourself, you know what? Say no.
Right.
See how that goes. See how that feels, how much better you feel about yourself, and build on that.
And it sounds so much nicer the way you put it than when you say build your assertiveness, be more assertive. It's blah, blah, blah. But you say, hey, don't let the strings don't go in the web of the spider. I like that. I really like. Now, one of the central focuses of the book is the concept of earned confidence.
Right.
What is it?
Well, right, and earned confidence is chapter 1, and the chapters do build on one another. So it's really the foundation of the book, and it's, of all things, I think it's the most relevant, not only for the book itself and reference throughout, but right now with what's going on, and the adjustment that we're all making, and however temporary our circumstances are with COVID. But earned confidence basically is something to remind us and to ground us that wherever we are in our lives, young or otherwise, we've been through things. We've been through them, and we're still standing, right? So, through those experiences, if you really just stop and realize, I'm going to make it through everything else that comes my way, because I've always made it through everything I ever have. So this is really talking to the worrier.
Yeah.
And kind of outsmarting yourself, because it's a logic filter in a way, like, oh yeah, what am I worried about? And there are other aspects of worrying toward energy, we could
Right,
get
it
into.
hasn't happened yet, so why
Right,
worry about it? Worry
right,
about
right,
it when
right.
it does happen, and I love that. And you also invite the readers to a forum to contribute their own Z-isms and life experiences and what they learned, and I like that aspect too.
Thank
It's
you.
beautiful.
Yeah, in that way, the book has no ending. So you're referring to the private forum. It's a Facebook group, but a reader forum that there's like a secret code in the book that you have to note it, 3 knocks and something like that. And then, once everyone's in, as we talked about, Z-isms are things, you don't have to have a book in you, but you certainly have certain experiences that everyone, can share with the world to benefit. And that's what I'm looking for in this reader forum. So, we're only 3 weeks into the publishing of the book, so I'm really mostly talking to myself in there. But I'm looking forward to more people reading it, more people joining it, and having that dialogue, and then having that intimate relationship with the readers. The one thing back to earn confidence I think is really important is talking about being in the present. That's really what it. You shouldn't be caught up in your regrets. You shouldn't be worried or having anxiety about things that haven't occurred yet. But those are learned traits. I mean, babies aren't born worriers.
No.
So how do you
Live fully
unlearn
in
that?
the present. How do you that's a tough thing for many people that suffer from what they call anxiety. Even in these times when COVID-19, they're worried about crazy things.
Well, I also don't want to take away from that line between an anxiety being a true medical
Right.
chemical imbalance versus somebody who is on the worry side,
Mm.
more of a habit than anything. And so what you need to do is, so let's say that you worry about something, Christine, and it doesn't come to be, and then you realize like, oh, that never happened. You have to stop and be like, what did I do to myself? What did I do to myself in all the worrying and the negativity and not being present while I was expending that energy in that way, but also the people around me? Because when people worry, there's that energy transference. You're calling your friends, what about this? What about that? And now you're imposing that on them.
Yeah.
And we all have a responsibility, with our energy exchanges in that way, which we just have to be more conscious of, because it's true, there's a transference, and we just have to recognize that.
I'm not sure if you're familiar with the work of Dr. David Hawkins. I'm a big fan of his letting go and power versus force. He's all about the energy and the vibrations and letting go of negative energy, negative feelings.
That's right.
And
That's right.
it is so true. We all,
There's a dot that connects here, which is when we fast forward to the later part of the book, when we get into amplifying gratitude, which is all about the law of attraction. I summarize that, and maybe the most important line in the book is that what you expect tends to happen. Right? Those expectations, right? So if you really believe that, if you hold on, if you believe in the law of attraction, that's all the more reason why not to worry.
yeah,
Because if you're setting a worry, you're beginning to set around an expectation of the things that you don't want to happen.
right. Don't
So,
focus on the things you don't want to happen. Focus on the things you do want to happen.
of course,
When you learn to drive and you drive through a narrow street, look in the middle where you want to go. Don't look where you don't want to go, or you will drive there.
right. Yeah, and if you do believe in the law of attraction, or at least are open to it, then being a worrier, you're contradicting yourself.
Yeah, true.
Right?
So many
So don't
people
worry.
do it, but
Don't worry.
you're right. It's not worth to worry. It's not
You
worth
got
worrying.
this. Stand on your 2 feet.
Yeah,
Life's going to come your way.
yeah. I mean, take precautions when appropriate, but there's no
Right.
need to worry and get anxious about it.
There's a chapter on that for you too, Christine.
Hey, cool.
The dose of prevention.
Yeah.
The best way to manage a crisis is not to
Yeah.
let it happen.
Well, that's true.
So there's a whole
I
bunch of those there.
Yeah, we could go into politics with that.
That would be the last thing I would want to go into.
Never.
Fair enough.
Now, what about your stance of making coincidences matter? In my world, there's no coincidences.
Yeah,
Call it synchronicity.
right. People have different philosophies about coincidences. They might say, well, I don't believe in them at all, chance encounters, or I don't believe in them in the sense because it's really meaningful. It's around serendipity, and then somewhere in between. And, what I found with the energy that we experience in our lives, and being in the flow. People, there's the chapter in that is swimming with the current, and the more that you're able to tune into that, at least in my experience, you tell me if for yourself or others who are listening, the more you're in tune with being in the flow, the more you start to experience the law of attraction, you start to experience coincidences happening, and even more so, more powerful coincidences happen. Why am I having trouble stumbling on the word coincidences
Right.
today?
And I
Right?
find it interesting because so many people can't go with the flow. They feel they have to swim against the current and work all day instead of listening to their intuition, which is similar to going with the flow.
That's right. I mean, back to earn confidence. I mean, it's all about trusting your gut, and that theme goes throughout the book. Why not trust your gut? So, it just makes a lot of sense. But, the whole thing about coincidences, wow, is that it's an opportunity. If you want to ask yourself, why did something happen? You could then take proactive steps to be right. So a lot of times coincidences for me happen, something you don't expect. You might be in a conversation with somebody, or a reason why you're talking to them is about something else. And then all of a sudden you go off on this tangent, and then something connects, and it's like, well, I had no business having that part of the conversation in that
Or
way.
the way that Z-Man came apart. And I don't want to share it. The people have to look in the book because it's
Right.
fascinating.
Thank
But
you.
before we end this podcast
Sure.
and video and talk about how they can get the book, I would like to share one thing that you think is the most important thing for the listeners to take away.
Well, with respect to the book, I think that if you say it's a personal development book, you have to be someone who wants to be developed. Right. So, it's a two-way street here. And if you come out of the book and it's just a matter of, I'm going to get into this kind of a routine and enrich my life in that way, or take up a new hobby, now's a good time to be doing that. You can do that a la carte, or you can come out of the book and really try and get some structure around some of these bigger issues, all the way up to defining your purpose and then setting yourself on a path to achieve it. So, there's something for everybody in there, and I wrote it in such a way that I believe it's impossible to come away from the book and not be better for it. So, anyone whose hands I can get the book in, makes me feel much better for helping them out.
Cool. So how can they actually get the book?
Well, it's certainly available on Amazon, and you can see the reviews and take the look inside. They can read about Z-Man, right? That's in the front of the book, so you'll be able to see about that. Same thing on my website, which is Z-isms.com. There's a hyphen, so there's Z-isms.com.
That's important.
ISMS, important. Don't forget the hyphen. And there are some free tools there. There's to the health side of it. There's a self-care report card that they can download for free. That's a free tool. That's also in the book. And just you'll know if you explore the book and you start reading it, you'll know for sure if you want to read on. So very grateful for anyone who takes that first step, and hopefully you'll find meaning and benefit from it.
So it was wonderful to talk to you today, Matt. And your Z-isms are very much worthwhile. Of course, I'll share the link. And the website again is z-isms.com. Or for those that say z-ism.com.
Yes, translation, very important.
Oh, very important. I must admit, I pronounced it Z-isms first, and I thought, what's a Z-ism? And then I read the beginning of the book, and it said, oh, Z-isms. Okay, you see the isms. Okay,
Well,
and it's, of course, American.
the funny thing is that I'm a little bit of a I guess I was narrow-minded on this point, being an American, like, oh, it's Z, right? And I thought about it at the end of the book. Wait a second. And I spent a lot of time in Canada too, where it's Z, but it just didn't dawn on me until the later part, like, oh, everyone's going to call this Z. So yeah, the phonetics
coming
there.
from Germany, it's always Z.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Z.
So if you need a German translation, I'll be happy to.
Thank you. I'll take all translations. Much appreciated. Thank you so much for having me, Christine.
Thank you for being here. And I wish you all the best, and that many listeners people who watch it get your book and benefit from it.